we talked a little bit about CrewAI, and essentially what it is a multi-agent framework. And so there's a ton of AI agent companies out there, but we really wanted to focus on kind of the pain points we were hearing about other companies, so that it's too high technical and it requires too much work. And so we allow, those low technical people to also take advantage.
10,
7, 6,
4, 3, 2.
So we're about to jump into an overview of CrewAI. Emma is their sales engineer, and she is just not only an expert in the space, but she has so much energy, so much passion, and it certainly comes through when she speaks. So super excited to have you here, and thank you for being patient. The panel ran over because everybody just loves to dive in.
No, I was going to say it was a great conversation to hear, so I'm glad it went on.
Yeah, absolutely. So the stage is yours. Will you be sharing your screen? I'm assuming you will be. Excellent. So if you'd like to pull it up, but first of all, would you like to just tell everyone a little bit about you and why you joined Crew? So, again, CrewAI is such a momentous company in the space, but such a new company as well. So would love just to hear your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been super interested in the AI space, but I never really got the opportunity right out of college because it was in a point where AI was still kind of, talking and there wasn't a ton of information. And then when I heard about CrewAI, I knew how to jump ship because AI agents was already a developing thing. And so I knew I had to kind of get in a little bit early and get my stance on it.
Great. Excellent. Well, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about CrewAI, and essentially what it is a multi-agent framework. And so there's a ton of AI agent companies out there, but we really wanted to focus on kind of the pain points we were hearing about other companies, so that it's too high technical and it requires too much work. And so we allow, those low technical people to also take advantage. So here we have the enterprise platform. And like Lorenze was saying, we started as open source. And so a lot of developers really liked our product and wanted to kind of transition into that enterprise product where you're able to see the status of all the crews. And so I'll go over a high level overview, and then Lorenze will actually be able to go into a more technical deep dive of how the crews actually function. So I'll just be going over the complexities. So here we have our crews, and in its name, crews are basically just agents. So it could be like 2 agents or it could be 200 agents. It doesn't matter. It's essentially 0 to 1, workflow. So you're able to automate something as simple as just searching the internet and generating a PDF. Or we see some people actually wanting to completely eliminate an entire department in their company. So really cool use cases that we're seeing from, potential customers and people who are interested. And the cool thing about Crew is that we're really industry agnostic. So anyone and anyone can really just take advantage of AI agents rather than it being kind of industry locked. And then another cool thing about us as well is we're agnostic. So similar to how some of the panelists were saying, being able to really test each model and each LLM and kind of seeing which one works best for what you want. So for crews, we're actually able to do kind of a deep dive into, I don't think I can, there we go. We're actually able to do a deep dive into each crew. So you're able to see the status. You have your inputs here. You have your kickoffs if you want to do any sort of webhooks. And you're able to see each run as well. So the flows between each agent. And then really, I won't go into everything specifically, but for each execution, you're able to see the execution time, if it failed, where it failed, how to fix it for each agent. And then you can actually go to the overall crew. So all the agents together, how long did that 0 to 1 process? So for example, the searching the internet, say you'll have 3 agents for that, one that's going to search the internet, one that's going to download all the data, and then one that's going to put it into a PDF. So all those 3 agents, you'll see each token, each metric, everything behind it. This is probably not the best crew to show, but because it hasn't been run in a while, but it will show a lot of metrics around that. And then you're actually able to schedule a kickoff too, along with testing. So there was some talk about testing the different LLMs. And so this count, for example, we only have OpenAI and Claude as the LLMs that we selected, but I can go into that in a second. So you're able to test each model, and then it'll actually spit out what it thinks the best model is based on a couple of things, like how long it took to execute, how many tokens it used. So for example, a simple crew probably would be better at mini rather than 4.0. So it's really helping you choose your model there. And then again, training your crews. So if the outcome is not what you expected it to be, you're able to train the crew and formulate a different outcome and trying to lean it towards that. And then for templates, like mentioned, we started as open source. So honestly, our community is super, super intrigued and always wants to improve on Crew. So a lot of our templates are there, but we also, like I mentioned, want to have those low technical people be able to take advantage of AI agents because it's such a hot commodity now. So, if you are still technical, you're obviously able to take advantage of Crew by downloading the Python code here, implementing custom APIs or whatever it may be. But if you're a low technical person and say, you're a salesperson, the sales offer generator looks good to you, all you have to do is hit deploy and it starts running straight away. So there's no coding involved. Obviously, if it's more customizable, you have to connect it to certain databases. You may have to know a little bit of Python or someone else on your team, but overall, it's really easy to use. And then with your integrations, you're able to really integrate with essentially everything because we have Zapier, and Zapier is a third-party marketplace, and it has essentially every integration there. And like I mentioned, we're LLM agnostic. So you're able to plug in any LLM. So for this one, we had Grok, OpenAI, and Anthropic. But for example, if you want to do Azure, then you're able to go ahead and select any of these models here. So it's really, really good if you have already pre-existing models that you were using, or if you just want to try one out. And then something that is really interesting about us is we have something called Crew Studio. Crew Studio is really where the low technical ability shines because honestly, I like to think of it as Chat GPT for building crews. So you're literally able to go into here and say, hey, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I want the outcome to be. Like, help me out. So for this one, for example, we have evaluating AI use and safety in digital products. And so, like I mentioned, you're able to go into here and say, find the product website, scrape it, do research about it, help me assess the risks, the hallucinations, the responsible AI practices. And it actually goes ahead and spits out an entire framework here. So for each crew, you need a tool, a task, and the agent. And so it gives you that. It gives you what it recommends. So SERPer, searching the internet, that makes sense. The search agent, that makes sense. And then task is to use the SERPer to search the web, which makes a lot of sense. And then so you're able to talk back and forth to it, say, hey, take this out, hey, add this. And it completely, goes on to what you're saying. And then at the end, it spits out the entire crew plan. So you have the agents, you have the goal, you have the backstory, each tool that they're using, along with all the tasks as well. And we made it really simple for people who don't really know how to code, like I mentioned, to be able to do that inline editing. So you're able to quickly just change something, add a tool, remove a tool. And then if everything looks good to you, then you can go ahead and actually just click generate crew and it will start running straight away. And then we also have the ability to go in and see the flows. This one is a really simple use case, so there's really not that much complexity to it. As you can see, it's a pretty straightforward flow. But if you have a complicated crew, you're able to see which agent is connecting to which agent, the flow, can agent B start on its own? Does it have to wait for A, et cetera, et cetera? So you're able to really make it customizable. And again, if you're maybe more technical or need to add customization, you're able to download this Python code and change it around. And then if you do have Python code, you're able to upload it via zip file, or you can actually connect your GitHub. And for each crew, it shows you exactly how you did that. So for this one, it was zip, and then this one was GitHub. And then similar to CRMs, we want to make sure that people who use the product, say it's a larger team, they will have the ability to make sure that some people don't have the ability to, change the crew code or whatever it may be, because if it's a low technical marketing person who wants to take advantage of AI agents, they don't go ahead and they just, change all the codes and everything. So you're able to go into the roles, and then similar to, like I mentioned, a CRM, you're able to do manage, read, access for the crew dashboards, usage, etc. So, and yeah, that is a very high speed run without me getting into too much detail. And now that you have kind of a baseline and overview of the product itself, I will pass the mic off to Lorenze, who can actually show you how crews work.
Sweet. Thank you. Let me share my screen now. All right. So at Crew, on the agent level, we make building agents super easy. Out of the box, you get things like caching, memory, train, and guardrails. And these are things I could kind of cover as we go on. But how does this work? When you have a couple agents, Emma showed one of her simple crew. We have 4 agents, from research, doing analysis, summarizing, and then generating reports. How do they actually work together? Like a team of humans, they actually do something called cooperation and role playing. These are actually spec'd out as tools. So the agent itself, by nature, within the CrewAI framework, has tools called delegate and ask questions. So specific tools that a research agent or an analyze agent can now share amongst each other when it comes to answering a particular task. Diving deep into memory, this is a question I get asked a lot. We have 3 types of memory, and altogether they combine into something called contextual memory. So short-term memory takes every previous execution. So like, let's say you just executed your entire crew, that will be stored as short-term memory. Long-term memory is a way for agents to self-learn and self-evaluate over time. So we take the end outputs, summarize that, add recommendations, add suggestions from the LLM or from the agent standpoint, so it could use as context for future kickoffs to kind of like self-improve. Entity memory is a way for agents to be able to know things like names, places, dates, things like that. And combine that, we have contextual memory. We also have something called knowledge. So you could preload your agents with particular docs, like your company documentation or certain context that you want your agents to have. You could pass that as a crew level knowledge, or individual agents having specialized pieces of knowledge like contracts or particular guidelines of how do you do XYZ things. And again, the tooling is super important. So how do you connect to your external or internal systems? We have tools for that. We have a bunch of pre-built tools within our CrewAI tools repository, and or just building a custom tool is super easy, and we'll do some live coding for that. There's different ways of kicking off an orchestrator. So we have Crew, which is more fully autonomous. So passing a high-level goal, like find top candidates on LinkedIn based on my job posting. A Crew will have your agents running in sequential processes to execute that from this high-level goal, right? So your agents are doing all the heavy lifting and all the work for that. We have ways for guaranteeing inputs and outputs. So if you want to morph or modify input before your crew gets executed, you could use something called a before hook. And then if you want to guarantee this goes into like a database, your crew finishes a report, you want to upload this blog, you can use an after hook for that. And then we have another one called flows, which enables you to create an event-based orchestrator, where you have a start method that will execute things based off a different conditional that you've passed. So you define every single step of the way. You have full control and flexibility when it comes to executing things in an agentic workflow. And then we use this feature called CrewAI tests, which uses LM as a judge to evaluate every single task that gets outputted. So by definition of a task, you're required to have a description of the task, an expected output, and then the agent itself. And we compare the task output to that expected output that you've defined. Using LLM as judge, we score from 1 to 10. Then you could train it using reinforcement learning with human feedback. So what that means is after every task gets executed, it'll stop, it'll ask you, hey, how can we improve? Or if there's any suggestions that you want to add, you could do that. So change from numbered list to bullet list, or use this particular types of websites when I'm doing my web search. We'll evaluate that. We'll give it a summarization score and task eval score, and then load that into memory so that future kickoffs can now leverage that context that one, you've provided, but also itself has provided, like the agent itself has provided. And then what we've noticed is when we were to retest after training, the scores go actually higher, and sometimes even the time spent executing is also improved. So yeah, that's it from a high level, like technical overview. What I had in mind was I wanted to show kind of like one of the use cases that we've built. So you guys still see my screen, right?
Yeah.
I will assume so. Okay. So one of the use cases that I'm going to show is our contract analysis use case and kind of how it's built. And this is something you could easily deploy, like Emma showed on our templates page, but just diving deep into the code and how it actually works underneath the hood. So we have this query: how are warranties defined for company A and B? We have some PDFs and knowledge or like contracts. And what we're going to do is run a service that we built to classify the individual paper or contract. From there, we're going to generate chunks, which will be stored into a vector database. This is important for retrieving certain sections. And we're going to have a couple agents. We're going to have the first retrieval agent. We're going to have the site source agent. We're going to find if there's conflicts of interest with another agent. And then we're going to fully package that with our report agent. So this is how the contracts look. And we have customers in insurances to warranties to oil and gas companies leveraging these tools to automate a lot of their processes of just having to navigate through a bunch of contracts that they have. So let me go over to the pre-processing step. So underneath the hood, we're using a tool called docling to extract every single section in this document and then generate the chunks for us. So if we go over here to process contract, I'll zoom in just a little bit more. But what you can see is we're going to convert this PDF that we have. And then from there, we're going to export it as Markdown so our LLM can use to classify the contract. And we're going to classify every single thing based off if it's an affiliate agreement, is it a co-branding type of contract, is it a franchise contract, right? So from there, once we've classified the contract, we're going to generate chunks. We can't just load in the whole PDF. If we load in the whole PDF, we'll lose context of certain things like, oh, where was pre-marketing, right? This is section 1.58. Where was pre-marketing, right? It's just going to have a hard time understanding the semantic meaning behind pre-marketing when it comes to a higher level description of like, how does pre-marketing work within immune therapeutics or within my organization, right? So what we're doing is we're generating a classification and then also generating particular semantic chunks. We're generating chunks to create into vectors that will represent a semantic meaning behind every single section. So a chunk is kind of like a section in our case over here. From there, we're going to store that into a vector database. And what happens is we get things that look like this. Where is it coming from? What is the particular chunk? This is like the particular section or text. What was the reasoning behind why this is a license agreement? We're going to see metadata details like page number, see page number over here, what was this section, and things like that, right? And like this is the section, I think this is like the headings of it. So in combination, once we've pre-processed the documents, then we could kick off our crew. And again, the agent definition is done through YAML, so super easy. Agents is no more than a role guild backstory and some tools, and we have the 4 that I mentioned earlier. Again, every agent is going to be executing a task. So our first task is going to just retrieve the relevant tasks from our vector database, and then we're going to pass in this quadrant vector search tool, which is where all of these things live. We have the source citer task, which will get us the particular citation of where we got this answer from the previous task. And then we're going to pass that on to the conflicts of interest and then generate a report. As every agent executes a task, by nature, we're going to pass the context down to every next task. So once this is done, the source citer task will have this information. So we don't need to like append from like the prompt level, right? Oh, this was the answer from the first task. No, by nature, in a sequential process, task 2 will have context from task 1, and that just continues on. So attaching a tool is done through this. We have a bunch of tools when it comes to connecting to vector databases. We have their quadrant search vector search tool over here, and all we're doing is adding the collection name, the URL of where it's hosted, which is this. And before a kickoff, remember what I mentioned on guaranteeing certain things. We have a bunch of other contracts over here. So what it's going to do is pre-process them right before we kick off our 4 agents and 4 tasks. So if I were to kick it off locally, it looks something like this. CrewAI run, and this will take a couple seconds, but for the most part, what it's going to do is run this pre-processing step, be able to classify our contracts, and then from there, it's going to start executing our agents. So we see the data retrieval analysis is starting, it's thinking, it's going to use the quadrant vector search tool. Here's how it defined its arguments when it comes to the schema of what it passed on to the tool level. Here's, let's see if we're getting our outputs. Actually, input is not about key. Yep. Sometimes live demoing, you know, you got the mercy of that. So let's try it again. There we go. So this time it worked, and we're getting the relevant documents. So this is the exact metadata of what we need to find. We're trying to find our kickoff, which is, let me show you guys this, a query of what are the differences in how contracts define warranties between credit cards Inc. and digital cinema destinations, right? So our first agent is trying to find the particular relevant sections for this query for creditcards.com Inc. So you find over there, and this is something tied to warranties, and we can see the same for the other company as well. And it's still answering. Sometimes it fails, but within an agentic framework, it kind of self-heals and recovers. And after a couple seconds, hopefully we get an end output. After this, what I'm going to show you guys is the train and then also the test feature and how you guys can run that locally. But this is something that usually takes a minute or two to run. This is something that would have taken a couple hours actually for individuals to find, having to navigate through so many reports and docs or just contracts in their own organization. So yeah, the kickoff is done, and this is the end output, right? We have credit cards con Inc. We have digital cinemas destination, which is from the query. What are the differences in how contracts define warranties between them two? Here's how it states the warranties. Here's the particular section file it's referencing, and particular files and subheadings for that. Next is, let's do test. So test using as a judge to evaluate the outputs of every test or task. I'm sorry. So let's run this. Let's see how it does. So again, it's doing the same rerunning, but at the end, what we're going to see is a score representation of how our tests executed and how long they took. And again, this is all things you can see in the platform. Just when you're evaluating and you're testing locally, this is how you would trigger it. I think it's about to finish. We have the sections, we have the clauses, and we're just waiting for this final eval. And again, what's cool about this is even though sometimes using the tools fail, the agent will kind of understand the error message and then try to overcome that failure. It's almost, we got the final answer, and what we should be seeing is the score. Boom. So task 1, we got 9, task 2, we got 7.5, and this is the score out of 10, and this is how long it took. So again, we have the ability over here to understand from an LLM as a judge perspective how well our task executed against the task expected outputs. And if we were to look at the schema over here, expected outputs was a data set containing all relevant contracts, a list source, list of conflicts of interest, and then our expected outputs. And then if we ourselves compare that to the actual reports, this is actually what we see. We get the contract analysis, details, we get the potential conflicts of interest, and then overall, this is the full report with the sources. So yeah, pretty much I would also give it a 9 and 8.5 as an overall score. The last feature is train. So to train over there, we could do CrewAI train with one iteration. You could do n numbers, so you could do 5 or 10. And after every task gets completed, we have the ability to give it a suggestion. And what this does, it will store it as a pickle file so that for every future kickoffs, you have this extra added context. So over here, we're in training mode. Please provide feedback to improve the agent's performance. This actually got all the contracts pretty much right. So let's say for this one, this looks good to me, and then it'll move on. The reason why it was failing was because it was using filters that don't really exist. So maybe for the second one, we could actually give it like a suggestion saying, hey, you don't need to add any filters when using the quadrant vector search tool. And hopefully that should prevent these errors. So when we train, we can help improve and give suggestions for future kickoffs. So let's see when this wraps up. So I think that was the second step. Now we're doing the third step of providing conflicts of interest, which you see over here. That's the next execution. This looks good to me. Always return the page number as well. That's what we could say. And then now it should re-execute that. The page number was not specified, but we also do have page 5 over here. So it's kind of listening to our suggestion. And then what we should see next is the last report generation test or task. And then see, sweet. And I think that's it. So that was end to end, kind of how our contract analysis use case is. We did a kickoff, we did train, and then we did test. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, points of clarification, that was it.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wow. There's no wonder the company's blowing up and there's so many enterprises already engaging with you. That was amazing, guys. Really, really amazing. Thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for the demo. Please, if anyone out there wants to get in touch with CrewAI, link him with Emma and the team. We'll also be posting links in our newsletter to CrewAI so you can get in contact with them. They're such an amazing organization and great team, and super excited to see what you're going to continue to do in the space. Guys, well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Great. Wow. Oh my goodness. Our first live.
Our first live. We got through it. We're here. We did it.
Wow. I mean, Agentic AI is truly blowing up. I remember last year kind of getting the first sniff of organizations truly starting to talk about Agentic AI. But did I think it would blow up this quick? I mean, wild.
Yeah, I guess I always thought it was going to be an internal thing. I remember a couple years ago working on we have to have personas, we have to have, an agent-like capability, but I guess I didn't see it blowing up in this way and actually creating just the ripple effect of all of the changes it's creating, but then again, I remember going to Black Hat and saying, oh my God, this cool new thing, GPT-3, have you heard of it? Right. So, I mean, what do I know?
No, I think what you touched on there is great. I mean, agents themselves have been around for a long time, right? But I thought what was fascinating in Jeremiah's presentation this morning is just this aha moment. I can't actually remember, he said, what did he say? It's 25% reduction in search, right? I actually can't remember the last time I queried something on Google. I quite literally use the 5 or 6 key language models that are in my life. They're like relationships in my life, companions throughout the day to help. But I actually don't go to Google anymore myself to look something up. So he's right. And I can see how, once AI agents do start to emerge a little bit further in our personal lives, how I would actually not even think, I wouldn't even probably use my text functionality on my phone if someone could just summarize my text messages, my emails. I could essentially use voice to respond to people. I can't wait for that personally.
I agree and disagree. I mean, I think we're still a long way off. Everyone kind of has their own tone when they speak to people, right? So you're training it on yourself, which I get. You'd have to train an agent on your mannerisms. But I still use Google search. I don't get the same results when I use a chat engine. And it's because Google has those personal signals that it shouldn't have, right? This is the big debate on privacy, right? But, Google still works better than like DuckDuckGo or any of the other platforms because it knows where you are, what you're doing, who you're in proximity to, right? So I don't want to forget that those still exist. And I'm very curious to see how those parameters, how even that marketing data that then gets used to hyper target or know what you want is going to start to be built into agents and the agentic architecture.
I can't wait to see how the future of websites are built. Is it some advanced data repository or a RAG system that just lists all of your products with pictures? I mean, if a human's not interacting with your website, how would you recreate it? It's probably just a data repository. Everything's tagged, annotated with keywords so that an AI agent can essentially go out and find a product. I mean, it's going to change so quickly.
It is. I also wonder, I like learning new things and having to figure things out. I am curious on the cognitive side, on the human side, are we going to be able to figure things out for ourselves anymore? I must have been in middle school, elementary school when Google came out, right? And everyone was like, Google's going to destroy the way we think. And it's a tool that helps us, right? But I am curious if we're kind of back to that argument of, are we going to be able to still think critically and know how to find information if it's all done for us, if it already knows what we want?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I'm starting to see now every website being written by ChatGPT on the dawn of a new era. You're like,
on the edge in the cloud.
On the edge in the cloud. No, but it does, as language models, which by the way, are only going to continue to get better, right? Language models are only going to continue to become more personalized, more inclusive, more diverse in sound, right? Social linguistic variances in language models will happen. I was watching a video this last week from Microsoft, and they're releasing an emotional sounding AI that quite literally picks up on your tone, your mannerisms, and responds to you in that way, right? So I think that's fascinating. I do think that's going to change also how we feel about AI agents, and we could probably do a whole nother session on this. What does it mean to feel something for an AI agent? I know it sounds like crazy, and I'm not talking about agent girlfriends and boyfriends and seeing some of the deeper connections, but just generally speaking, I remember the first time I had an Alexa in my house, and I would come home to my apartment in the city, right? I'm living in San Francisco. I get home, there's always this moment, right, as you go to open the door, you're thinking of every scary movie you've ever seen, and you're like, is somebody in my apartment? Clearly there's not. But to be greeted by Alexa when I walked in made me feel like I wasn't alone. And that was the first moment I was like, but I'm here alone. I'm physically here alone. But by having Alexa in the house, I felt like I wasn't. So that was the first change I saw in myself. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how newer generations of humans have these attachments to their AI agents. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, I definitely see a double-edged sword there. I mean, I kind of liken it to if you're staying at a place where you think it's haunted or something weird, you sleep with the light on, right? Or the light's not going to save you, but you just feel better, right? It's the same with having an Alexa in your house. On the opposite side of that, I remember being a kid and having a Furby and it waking up in the middle of the night and just hearing me all the time. And I did not feel safe with the Furby in my room watching me. And there's certainly a big draw for the horror side of this. So it is fascinating to see how this is actually playing out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're talking about on this, right? When is it going to protect you and when is it going to rise up against you? I don't know, but I think it's going to take a lot of different components that we're not even thinking about coming together in ways that we're not used to in order to both make it work and build new technology on top of it.
So with that, I'd love to close out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This is our first You and AI for the year. It's also the first time Hallie and I have begun co-hosting together, and I'm super excited to co-host with you, by the way.
You as well. This is a lot of fun. Sorry I crapped out at the beginning. I was like, no, my gosh. So happy to be in this moving forward with you and just learning from so many different perspectives and so many different people.
It's so much fun. So look, AI agents, they're here. It's not a fad. Start experimenting, start learning, start asking, friends, customers, start engaging with different programs in your organizations. At the end of the day, the areas we're going to see the biggest lift will be enhancing productivity first. That is where a lot of organizations seem to be focusing. There's going to be a lot of tool integration. There's going to be a lot of changes in the architecture in organizations. I think there was some great points today around single agents versus multi-agent architectures. But again, do your research, work out what's best for you. You might just need business process automation as a first step before you start deploying AI agents. Obviously, we're going to see sectors change across the board, across the globe. Continuous learning, obviously said that already. And the human and AI synergy component is something I think we all need to continue to discuss daily, weekly, because it will impact our lives. It will impact our careers, our futures, both personally. And I think, keep the conversation going. Hallie, do you have any closing points?
No, you pretty much covered it. I mean, I have all the thoughts in the world and all the questions in the world, but we're just going to have to keep going with this and talking about it. So if you're watching, ping me, message me. I want to keep talking. I'm curious to hear your perspective. I'm sure, not to speak for you, T, but I'm sure T is too. We can nerd out about this together for hours. It gets crazy.
And lastly, obviously, we wouldn't be here together if it wasn't for the ideas around how we can deploy technology responsibly. What are the measures that need to be put in place to ensure that AI serves humanity and not the other way around? Boom, boom, boom. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to our amazing producer, Chris. You have been tirelessly working in the background, pulling us all together and coordinating and all of the great things. So to Chris, if you can come on screen quickly, we'd love to thank you. Where are you, Chris?
It's a joy. It's always a joy. What a wonderful panel we had today. A special thanks, Michael Rolfo, Cobus Greeling, Lorenze for stepping in at the last minute. Fantastic. And of course, Sean. What a great discussion. So really appreciate all the hard work from everybody. Emma and Lorenze from Crew being here. Fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Chris. Really, you've been trying to coordinate everything in the background and we're not always available.
This whole time we've been like, do this. Can you, wait, what about this? This thing's not working. And he's been on top of it.
So thank you so much. And to everybody out there, we're excited to bring you fresh new content in 2025. U&AI is all about educating, and we want to speak to bright minds, educators, everyday people about the impact of AI on humankind and the planet. So get in contact with us, follow us, and we hope to bring you some more content soon.
Bye now.
Bye, everyone.